What is female genital mutilation? FGM is defined as any procedure that intentionally alters, injures, or mutilates typically the external female genitalia without medical purpose. FGM is also commonly referred to as female genital cutting or female circumcision. FGM is known to be harmful to those that suffer having it done by causing extreme pain, shock, severe bleeding or hemorrhaging, plus tetanus, sepsis, or other potentially deadly infections. FGM is categorized into 4 different types of practices and are carried out on females ranging from infancy to the age of 15 typically. This type of FGM is a practice that includes the partial or total removal of the clitoris and or the pubis, which is sometimes medically referred to as a clitorectomy. The clitoris is a small protruding structure made mostly of erectile tissue. The clitoris is the female equivalent of the male penis. The pubis is the skin fold that covers the clitoris. The pubis on females is the equivalent of the male pubis, also known as the foreskin. Damage to the clitoris by complete or partial removal results in the damage of the sensory nerves that innerve the area, typically inhibiting female sexual arousal and pleasure. Similar to type 1, type 2 also consists of partial or complete removal of the clitoris. Additionally, type 2 includes the removal of the labia minora and sometimes the labia majora. Labia minora are similar to the male ventral penis. Labia majora are similar to the tissue of the male scrotum. Unlike both type 1 and type 2, type 3 consists of the narrowing of the vaginal opening. This is done by cutting the labia minora and or labia majora and stitching both sides together. The healing results in an almost complete seal that covers the urethra and vaginal openings. This seal must be cut or ripped open in order for intercourse and childbirth to occur. Sometimes the clitoris is partially or completely removed. It's the category that is reserved for all other forms of FGM, which includes procedures like pricking, piercing, scraping, or cauterization. This type is usually considered more symbolic circumcision, and although thought of as less severe forms of FGM, this category is still considered a violation of female human rights. In this frame, we have a diagram of the different types of procedures practiced. The top left frame is a diagram of a normal vagina. Type 1 is on the right-hand side, and there you can see where the pubis has been removed and the clitoris has also been removed. The bottom left corner is a picture of the type 2. Here you can see where the labia minora have also been altered. On the other frame, you have type 3. This here shows how the labia majora are sealed and only a little bit of the vaginal opening still remains.
FGM occurs in 32 of the 48 African countries. For example, Egypt, South Sudan, Djibouti, Somalia, and Nigeria. It is also present in some Middle Eastern countries, such as Iraq. Also, migrants from these countries are often victims of FGM. The exact origins of FGM have not been identified. Its earliest mention in history was by the Greek historian Herodotus in 450 BC. Some historians believe it was an African puberty rite that spread into Egypt. Religion is often accused of starting FGM, but there is no mention of FGM or the need for FGM in the Quran or the Bible. Some of the original reasons for FGM were the prevention of immorality, prevention of labia hypertrophy, which is the growing of the vagina, improvement of fertility, more sexual pleasure for the male, and the curing of diseases such as hysteria, insanity, and nymphomania, which is sex addiction. Some believe that FGM is a cultural aspect of life. A study conducted with Somalian women who practice FGM revealed that they consider it to be a norm and an important rite for passage for women. They said they cannot imagine a woman who has not had the procedure, and push for it for not only themselves but for their children.
Now that you've been informed about FGM, let's move on to talk about what is being done to put an end to the practice.
Action must be taken to stop FGM. Political leaders and various human rights organizations have been looking into what can be done to stop this horrendous practice. In Violence Against Women, Abandoning Female Genital Mutilation, the Role of Parliaments, members from the African Parliamentary Union, the National Assembly of Senegal, UNICEF, and the Inter-Parliamentary Union all spoke about several options to end FGM. The first order of business was to tackle issues of FGM being an action that abuses human rights because many consider the practice to be a cultural norm. In the presentation, Professor Abdoulaye Sow said, "I have come to the conclusion as an anthropologist that it is not a cultural practice. It is a shameful practice because a mutilation cannot be considered a cultural act." Another speaker, Ms. Alexandra Rossetti, head of information of UNICEF Switzerland, agreed, saying FGM is seen as a violation of the right to life, to physical integrity, to the highest obtainable standards of health, to freedom from physical or mental violence, to the rights of development of the child and of the woman, to protection and to participation. It is for these reasons that leaders should stand together to help change this practice. In one part of Professor So's speech, he said, "Yes, we are Africans, but we are first and foremost human beings. Why should we, in the name of identity, mutilate our girls, our women?" Leaders were called to encourage their citizens to stop FGM. Countercultural arguments and medicinal information sessions are ways to encourage others to stop the practice. Religious leaders have been called to address the issue that there is no religious text supporting FGM. Also, countries need to stand together on this topic so it stops being practiced throughout the world. Education is also being used as a tool to end FGM. Medicinally, both leaders and human rights activists are sharing information about the risks of FGM. These risks include infections, severe pain, complications with urination and menstruation in women, and mental and emotional trauma to victims of the practice. Human rights organizations are taking other educational approaches towards stopping FGM. Ms. Alexandra Rossetti said, "The main human rights approach involves the right to education. The Swiss Committee of UNICEF is focusing on education and the protection, as is UNICEF International, and especially in the eyes of equal status of girls, which also implies the right to education and the abolition of medical harmful practices such as FGM." With the help of political, religious, and interstate leaders, with the use of education and help from other human rights organizations, hopefully we can put an end to this practice.